The long weekend is over. Should the Dodgers be looking at Josh Hader, the pros and cons of the left-handed reliever, and some news and notes from a new baseball league, a couple signings over the weekend, and should the Dodgers be in on a Cuban right-hander that recently defected? That's all coming up, so let's get Locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked on Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked on Dodgers. We are part of the Locked on Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked on, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us where we find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked on Dodgers. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day. And an easy way to do that is to subscribe where we get podcasts and on YouTube and be notified when our episodes are ready for you, which is every Monday through Friday. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, usually joined by co-host Jeff Snider, but it's just me today. We are both lifelong Dodger fans. We've both watched a lot of Dodger games in our life. We've both been consumed by Dodger baseball, and we've done a lot of things surrounding the team. We're not quite insiders, though. We're just here to bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue and hopefully bring you some knowledge and rational thoughts and maybe irrational thoughts or present ideas that you didn't think of and all that kind of stuff. So that might be what I'm doing today, depending on how you've thought about the offseason in presenting an idea that you maybe didn't think of. And that's in the form of Josh Hader. Not someone I really thought of for the Dodgers either, but I've seen him on a couple lists of either not the Dodgers having interest, but that the Dodgers should have interest or that he would fit on the Dodgers. And then I think Jim Bowden from The Athletic kind of mentioned him as mentioned him as someone the Dodgers should go after or should be thinking about at least. And it got me thinking, like, should the Dodgers be interested in Josh Hader? And, initial thought is no, just because it's probably going to cost more money than they would want to spend on a closer, especially a closer that has some specific or has had some specific rules to using him in the past. But, we'll break down the pros and the cons of Josh Hader and, kind of look at what a deal would look like and if the Dodgers should consider that. So, Josh Hader is 29 years old. He'll turn 30 in the first week or 2 weeks of the season. So basically 30 years old, relatively young for a reliever. And, you look at what he's done in his career, and, career numbers look very, very, very good. Has a career 2.50 ERA with 648 strikeouts and 388 innings. He has a career 2.73 FIP. He has a career .944 WHIP. He's been an All-Star 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. He's even gotten Cy Young votes before. He's made at least 30 saves 4 times in his career. And, overall has been a very good reliever for the most part. He struggled mostly in 2022. That was his worst season. He struggled a little bit with Milwaukee. He ended up getting traded to the Padres. And then, if you can remember, had that very bad start to his Padres career. Ended up with a 7.31 ERA and 16 innings for the Padres that year. But recovered last year to have a 1.28 ERA in 61 games, 56.1 innings, 85 strikeouts, 1.1 WHIP, and the FIP at 2.69. So he outperformed his his peripherals a little bit, but not even if his ERA was what his FIP was, 2.69, still pretty solid. So, there's a prolonged stretch of him being a great reliever, which is obviously a pro in his favor. Even if you look at, you think about when maybe like you're in a class or something like that, and let's just say you have 5 tests over the course of a semester, and some professors or teachers would throw out your worst graded test or your worst graded quiz or whatever the case is. So you basically had one like mulligan type deal. If you kind of treat the 2022 season as that mulligan, then Hader looks even way better, obviously. And even in that year that he wasn't great, he still had the strikeout rate. He just had struggles elsewhere. Gave up a little bit more, not even more walks. Did give up more home runs than most seasons, and just ran into trouble. Just had maybe combination of some bad luck. I mean, his FIP was 3.45 that year, and his ERA was 5.22 overall. So obviously, he had a little bit, of not the luck that he's had the rest of his career. So the other part that's positive for him is he has stuff. He still has stuff. You look at his baseball savant page, and it's very, very, very red. Expected ERA, expecting batted average, chase percentage, whiff percentage, strikeout percentage, barrel percentage, which is limiting the number of hard contact, his hard hit percentage. Those are all in the 90th percentile, with some of those touching the 99th and 100th percentile. So he's still really good. Fastball velocity is 96. It's not wipe away 100 miles an hour, but still averages 96 miles an hour on that fastball. He's got the slider, changeup, not really a pitch he uses, but a pitch that he does have. Probably more so throw off. He did. So he's still good. He still has, by all measures, elite stuff in terms of what he's been able to do. The stuff is still there, and for the most part, for a guy who is a 2-pitch pitcher, it's pretty good. He introduced, or not introduced, but he from 2022 to last season, the biggest change is that he upped his sinker percentage. That's his, the 2-seamer essentially. He upped that a little bit to, proportions that he hadn't reached since 2019. He dropped the slider percentage a little bit, and, that seemed to help him out, because that pitch is, last year you look at all his pitches and they were really good. He had batting averages under 200 for all his pitches. His sinker was at 190. His slider was at 100. Slugging percentage under 300. He, like I said, he had the whiff percentage, 51.7% on the slider whiff percentage. So he's getting swing and miss on that pitch. He only allowed 3 home runs. They were all on the sinker. By all means, it was a very, very good year. And like I said, his stuff has not really seen a decline, at least in terms of velocity or in terms of effectiveness over the last few years. So that's another pro in his favor. And, it's something you look at. Is it something the Dodgers need? And you look at the back end of their bullpen right now, and, it's Brusdar Graterol can be a late inning guy. They're maybe hoping Blake Trinan can be a late inning guy again. You have Evan Phillips, who's been that guy for them the last couple of years. And you think, like, they don't need Josh Hader. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing when it comes down to is they don't need him, but obviously a very good reliever can help out. And I think the pro for him, in the sense of coming to the Dodgers, is that I guess it's a pro and a con, is that he wouldn't need to be the closer, but also that he could be the closer, and that opens up, Evan Phillips for being in the fireman type role where he comes in and in big situations rather than just a ninth inning. And I think it's kind of twofold. We'll get more into that, what the Dodgers could use him for specifically, and then we'll look at some of the cons and his contract. So that's coming up. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. What does that mean? All you have to do is bet $5 on who is going to win a certain game. And if that team wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. That's basically $150 to bet on FanDuel, which is great because there's a lot of different ways to bet on FanDuel. You don't need to just do money line. You do for this specific promotion, but in general, spreads, player props, over under, same games, parlays. You could build out, some big parlays, 5, 6, 7 picks, and try to win some big money. So go check out FanDuel. The app is easy to use. It's easy to sign up. Get in on it. Do it before tonight's game. Tonight, the Vikings and the Bears play. Whoever you think is going to win, you put $5 on them. And if they do win, you get $150 more to play around with. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Kick off the rest of the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Remember, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Remember to also subscribe to Locked On Dodgers wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, and become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get back to Josh Hader talk. And, we were talking about what the role could be. And Josh Hader wants to get paid like a closer. I don't know if he necessarily needs to be the closer. And I think, it's one of those things where obviously we don't know that answer right now. Because with the amount of strikeouts that he does rack up, Josh Hader could be your fireman type. Maybe he gets paid like a closer, but you don't always use him in a closer role. You might bring him in the 7th inning, bases loaded, and it's one of those where, based on the fact, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit more, but he's always been a guy that only wants to throw one inning, doesn't like to pitch back-to-back days. Obviously, that presents an issue in itself, or it hasn't been effective on back-to-back days, but definitely doesn't want to throw more than one inning. And, you look at it, well, if he is the fireman type, that's kind of tough because it would seem like he has maybe a little bit of ego, and coming into a situation with bases loaded, 1 out, and expected to get out of the inning, and then you end up giving up runs, that obviously if you give up the runs that are already on base, it doesn't count against your ERA, but it does bring down your profile. But if he gets a longer term deal, does he really care about that? I don't know. I do think for the Dodgers specifically, I think if you sign him, it's as your closer, because it, like I said, it opens up everything else for him, and it leaves him in an easy position, usually starting the 9th inning, clear, nobody on base, and giving him, that aspect of it. So if the Dodgers go after him, I would expect it to be in an actual closer role, and obviously for closer money. But that, again, lends itself into the cons, where he's been protected in a sense. And by all means, from what we've known, it's because of his preference, and a little bit of ineffectiveness. The pitching on back-to-back days, he's been ineffective. Pitching on back-to-back days in the past, I don't necessarily. I don't know. I don't think it's something that he believes in or would want to be. I think it's just a matter of that's how it's been before. He definitely doesn't like to pitch more than one inning. We've heard that before, and there were some issues there toward the end of the season with the Padres, even. Um, of him you know, kind of questioning why he was coming into a game when the Padres weren't really in the playoff hunt anymore, which is obviously not ideal. Doesn't look great. You could chalk it up to the Padres being a little bit dysfunctional, maybe, and them just being a weird year for them, and him maybe being upset that he wasn't traded at the deadline in order to have a chance to be on the postseason. There's a lot of factors that could go into it. But from what we see on the outside, it seems like he's not the most personable and easy to deal with. The word, I don't know if the word diva is proper here, but just from what we've seen, like us as fans, not specifically of the Padres or where he's been with the Brewers, but just specifically fans, where all we see is the reports and the interviews and stuff like that. It doesn't paint him in the greatest light. But again, the stuff is good. The stuff is there. And, that's kind of what you come back to when it comes to Josh Hader. But if there is a legitimate issue with him pitching back-to-back days, and I think that really limits his value to the Dodgers because, the Dodgers are a team that utilizes the bullpen and I wouldn't say overutilizes them, but especially not knowing exactly what they're going to have in the starting rotation yet. The Dodgers are a team that's going to go to their bullpen when they need it, and they're not going to stretch out their starters to 7 innings every night. They're going to probably cut in more to 5-6 innings, and they're going to use their bullpen the rest of the way. And that would cause a guy like Josh Hader, especially if he's their closer, to have to pitch on back-to-back days sometimes, especially when they're looking to close out games and things of that nature. So, it's definitely not positive that he has struggled on back-to-back days. It's definitely not a positive that he's not a guy that likes to pitch more than one inning because, that handicaps you a little bit in the sense of, you're trying to get the last 9 outs of the game. You're trying to, script the last 9 outs of the game, and somebody goes off script, runs into trouble, and it could come to a situation where you already used Devin Phillips in the 7th inning to get out of a big deal. Let's just say you run into some trouble in the 8th inning. You can't go, or I guess you could go to Josh Hader, and maybe all this with Hader and the not pitching more than one inning and it could all stem down to him trying to protect himself to get to free agency, to be able to make that money, that life-changing money. And then now, maybe he'll be a little bit more open to some of these things because of that. And maybe that was why he had issue last year, with coming into that game for the Padres. And, I can understand as a reliever, you're going to get basically one shot at big money and you're trying to preserve yourself for it. And if your team's not necessarily, I can understand that. I don't love it, but I can understand it, and maybe if he signs a 5-year, deal somewhere in the $80 million range, maybe he becomes more open to pitching more than one inning or, works on pitching back-to-back or being good at pitching back-to-back days or things of that nature. So, not to flip every con into positive, but, we try to look at both sides here. And, at the end of the day, what do I think? I don't think the Dodgers are, one, going to go after Josh Hader. I don't think they need Josh Hader, and I don't think it's the right move to make in terms of what everything else they need. If there's one thing right now that is maybe the strong point of the Dodgers team is maybe the bullpen, just for the simple fact that they kept the guys that were throwing, late in the game. So, Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol, Yancy Almonte hopefully can bounce back from what he did last season. Maybe you get a guy like JP Fireeisen back, back there in the bullpen. You got, different guys. Evan Phillips, obviously Blake Trinan can maybe come back. You got, Vesia can maybe have a bounce back season. And then you have guys that could be made into bullpen arms like Michael Grove or Kyle Hurt, came up and had, a fun debut last year. You could see some of those guys being made into relievers as well. And it's not the Dodgers don't need relievers, but I don't think they need a top tier reliever for the type of money that Josh Hader would command, especially with all these potential drawbacks to bringing him in and having him on the team and all that. So I think when it comes down to is what his market ends up being, and it's looking like, a longer term deal, and it's looking like at least a 5-year deal, maybe in the $80 million range, similar to what Jansen got, similar to what Aroldis Chapman got, similar to those, because those didn't end up well, so it didn't necessarily help the closer the closer role in order for him, to say, oh, we should be paying closers this much. So, you look at what some of the predictions have for him. I've even seen 100 mil for him. 6 years, 110 mil is what MLB Trade Rumors has predicted for him. They all have the Rangers, and the Rangers have been the team he's been predicted to most. Basically, essentially, it seems like James think it's a formality that he's going to the Rangers. So, props to him. The Rangers did struggle with their back end of the bullpen last year. They didn't obviously ultimately hurt them because they still won the World Series. But I think he fits in Texas. So last point on it, I don't think that I should go after him unless his market crashes and they can get in on a bargain. So, all right, that's enough Josh Hader talk. We'll get into a couple of news and notes from around the weekend, including a new baseball league that's been, I guess, fun, depending how you feel on new baseball league. So that's what's on tap. So make sure you keep it locked on Dodgers. A reminder to become an everydayer by listening or watching to Locked On Dodgers every day. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And remember to check out the new Locked On Sports Today 24/7 coverage on YouTube from the Locked On Network. It's there for you all day, all night, 24/7. There's also an LA version of it. So go check it out and check out, LA, if you're a fan of all the LA teams or most of the LA teams, or check out the national one if you just want to keep the news going on what's going on around the sports world. So, all right, let's finish up with just some general talk. So there wasn't many signings over the weekend, thankfully for me, as someone that works in baseball. Let us enjoy the Thanksgiving weekend. One guy that we did talk about before is off the board for the Dodgers as a pitcher, and that's Kenta Maeda. Kenta Maeda signed a 2-year, $24 million deal with the Tigers. He's off the board now. That would have been someone of depth for the Dodgers, not necessarily, obviously, a main component of their offseason. So it's not a big deal that he signed. Good for Maeda. His last deal that he signed with the Dodgers that just ended was 8 years, 25 mil, and now he's getting that much in 2 years. So good for him. Congrats to him. And with it being a 2-year deal, if the Tigers aren't good this year or even next year, Maeda could become available in trade once again. It could be linked to the Dodgers once again. You never know. So other than that, there was not much else. Nothing on the Ohtani front. There was a New York, somebody from New York, and I think radio person or someone that said on Friday that Ohtani news might be coming, and then he walked it back once it picked up steam. He walked it back and said, well, might and today or blah, blah, whatever it was. Nothing ended up happening, obviously. So we haven't really heard much else about. The one thing we did hear about Yoshinobu Yamamoto is that the process of how his free agency is going to play out. He's meeting with teams via Zoom or phone call this week, and as he's back in Japan now. And then once he narrows down those teams, he's going to meet with teams in person at the winter meetings. And I would imagine after that, he signs before the winter meetings end or shortly after the winter meetings end. So hopefully getting some news on Yamamoto. The winter meetings start December 4th, next Monday. So hopefully we get some news then. Ohtani has also been rumored to be looking to sign in early December, winter meetings. I did see somewhere, I'm not sure if it was a report or just a thought on Ohtani. The earlier he signs, the more, his team that he signs with has a chance to continue, work on the off season of surrounding more talent with him and things of that nature. So it would benefit Ohtani to sign early and give his team a chance to, like I said, build a team. So the last bit of news here from over the weekend is there was some baseball. There's a new baseball league in Dubai, the first ever professional baseball league in Middle East and South Asia, and it's called Baseball United. There's 4 teams representing cities in India, Pakistan, and the UAE, United Arab Emirates. The teams are the Cobras, the Monarchs, the Wolves, and the Falcons. And this weekend, the league didn't start, but they had a opening showcase of all-stars. And, there are some names you'll recognize, guys like Andrelton Simmons, Pablo Sandoval, Bartolo Colon, Shed Long, who played in the league for a little bit, Resny Castillo, who was a guy from Cuba that didn't end up working out for the Red Sox. There is, I'm trying to think of who else is out there. Robinson Cano's out there, Didi Gregorius, William Rosario, Jair Jurgens. I think that there might be some others that people recognize, but those are the main guys out there. And, if you are missing baseball, it's something that you could pique your interest once the season starts. It's not. There's also winter ball going on, obviously, and there are some names out there. Miguel Rojas is playing in Venezuela. He was playing on the same team that Ronald Acuna played on, and I think Yasiel Puig is either on that team or joining that team soon. Jose Ramirez from the Guardians, he was out there this past weekend, hit a home run. So there's still baseball if you want to watch. There's different ways. You'd obviously have to look up whatever you want to watch and see how to watch it, but there is different. But Baseball United has an interesting rule that came into play over the weekend called the money ball, and I believe it's a manager has a chance to call up a money ball 3 times a game. And with the money ball, if somebody hits a home run when the money ball is out there, the runs count for double. So Pablo Sandoval is at the plate with 2 runners on, and they called for the money ball, and he hit a 3-run homer, and it ended up being a 6-run homer. So that was kind of interesting, kind of fun. If you're going to be an outside league that's not, trying to compete with MLB, but just trying to compete with, for baseball fans' attention when MLB is not going on, I think as long as it doesn't get extremely gimmicky, I do think there's ways to, like this, a money ball situation, double home runs, which means your team's not really ever out of it. Obviously, yeah, you could be down 10 runs, but even if you're down 10 runs, you load the bases, use the money ball, hit a home run. Now it's 10-8. It seems obviously not something I would ever want for MLB, but for like I said, a league that's just looking to bring eyes and viewers and attention to baseball around the country, obviously, or not around the country, around the world, but also, have a little bit of elements that are different. You think of the other football leagues that are out here in the U.S., that have been around, USFL, XFL, whatever else is out there. They all sometimes have little different rules that kind of, make it a little bit more fun. So Baseball United, something I believe you can watch the games on their website. I don't know when their season starts. The showcase was this past weekend. They had a couple of those all-star exhibition games. But, yeah, go check it out if you're interested. I would imagine if it has a successful debut, you might see more team, or you'll see at least more names that you recognize. I don't know if they're going to go for the older demographic like they have now, like, Robinson Cano, Pablo Sandoval, Bartolo Colon. I don't know if they're going to go for that element, if they're going to go for guys that, can't quite cut the big leagues. or maybe, don't want to go to Japan or, Dubai, I would imagine there's some money behind it. So they might, you might be able to attract some talent there. So, but that's all that happened over the weekend. There hopefully should be some stuff coming this week in terms, the very least, some rumors. And if not, definitely some action going into next week for the winter meetings, which are in Nashville. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. And make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube, and subscribe so you can get notified when our episodes are ready for you every weekday morning. Remember, Locked On has a 24/7 streaming channel right now called Locked On Sports Today, with local experts covering the top sports stories around the league 24/7. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe for the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Remember, for us, Locked On Dodgers, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us for any questions, comments, or concerns. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-LOCK. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, to your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.